The road to hell is paved with good intentions. What is a real-life example of this?
Experience 1. The unexpected consequences of your donations. Tom's Shoes is a company that pledged to donate a pair of shoes to a child in need for every pair purchased. Turns out that the company's donations disrupted local shoe markets in developing countries, putting local shoemakers out of business and creating a dependency on foreign donations. Additionally, the shoes donated by Tom's were not always appropriate for the local climate or culture and were not always of the same quality as the shoes being sold. Reportedly, they have ended up in landfills. Experience 2. My neighbor who is supposedly getting evicted soon. She saw young drug addicts, 30-year-olds, as people she could change for the better. She'd find them somewhere and bring them home. The idea was that she could show them a warm apartment and good food, and they would realize the error of their ways and change for the better. That or a safe place to do their drugs. We had a door code so they could come in and knock on her door until she answered. It was a constant stream of strange people going in and out of her room all night long. I figured it wasn't my problem. People can do what they want if they aren't hurting anyone else. But then 3 of the men decided to take advantage of her because it's not like she could physically kick them out herself, and she wouldn't call the police. These are people who don't want to change, they like their lifestyle, and she gave them an upgrade. We are pretty sure they are doing meth in there. They come back at 1:30 a.m. and either snort something or smoke something that from the hallway smells like cat pee or paint thinner. Then they scream bloody murder, throw things, and have domestics until 11 a.m., like clockwork. Police can't actively go into the room, and even people on the top floor are calling them. The landlord and management are doing their best to get them out, but that's a lengthy process. They disabled the door code, but they are still getting in. Even the girl has been taken to the hospital for overdosing a few times. Threats of murder or suicide are common. Anything not nailed down in the gym and lobby is getting trashed and stolen. The lobby bathroom is trashed constantly. Cars in the parking lot are being broken into and catalytic converters are being stolen. These men stalk around the parking lot watching people. We do have visitor rules, which are being broken. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Everyone expects to hear bullets fly anytime now. My goodwill is gone, we want her out. Experience 3. A man named Dr. Spock wrote a handbook for child rearing. It was widely circulated and well received. Many of our parents likely got their child rearing advice from this book. In it, he recognized that babies throw up a lot and therefore recommended newborns be laid on their stomachs to sleep. Unknowingly, this would result in the accidental smothering deaths of thousands of newborns. A huge number of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, cases can be laid at his feet. To this day, the Back to Sleep campaign is still fighting to update parents on what we now know: newborns should sleep on their backs until they can reliably roll over for themselves. Experience 4. Once upon a time, I found a wallet on the beach. Having lost my own more than once and not having it returned to me, I am aware that it is a stressful life event. So, my first thought was how to return it quickly. Looking through the contents, the owner was from out of state and there was no contact information other than the driver's license. Aside from that, only a few credit cards and some cash. Not knowing how long ago the owner had left, I thought let's just sit here for a while and maybe he will return looking for it since it is the first thing I would do. After a couple of hours of fun and sun, we needed to move on. My next best idea was to turn it into the local police station, which we found easily enough just down the street. What I thought would be a quick in and out turned into a full-on interrogation session during which I was, at one point, accused of theft/robbery. It was a bizarre experience, to say the least, which wasted an hour of our day. Experience 5. Bounties for killing invasive animals. You have a bunch of animals you don't want, so you pay people for each animal they kill, usually by getting them to produce the carcass or a unique body part. People then start breeding said animal as it's easier and more lucrative than catching them in the wild. The authorities find out and stop the bounty program. So, the breeder let all their newly bred invasive animals into the wild. The situation is now worse than before. There's a famous example involving cobras in India, IRC. They also tried this with rabbits in the area where I used to live as a kid. In this case, no breeding was required as the bounty drop-off point was the local police station. You'd go in with a bag of cute bunny tails. The officer on duty would count the tails and pay you for each tail. He'd then take the bag of tails around the back of the station and pop them in the dumpster. At this point, a friend of the bounty hunter would dive into the dumpster, retrieve the tails, go into the police station by the front door, and repeat the cycle with the just retrieved set of tails. Experience 6. Those parents who solve all their kids' issues and don't make them stressed about the consequences of their own actions. Their kids just turn into inept and entitled adults who still act 15 for decades and not only have a harder life for themselves but make life miserable for everyone around them too. Edit. 1. Yes, it's bad to go too far the other way. Raising a child is a balancing act, I get that, but ignoring a child isn't usually from good intentions while spoiling them often is, and that was the prompt, smiley face. 2. If this sounds like it happened to you, I promise you that you can get yourself out of the cycle. It sucks and it hurts and it's unpleasant, but you can do it if you want to. Get ready to fail, and then keep trying anyway. Persistence will be a new skill, and you will be bad at it. And that's okay. You didn't do this to yourself, you don't need to feel shame. Digging yourself out, however, is something you'll be doing yourself, and you can take pride in every step you make in the right direction. Experience 7. On a personal scale, trying to help a really drunk person. I'm a woman and talkative, and I started talking to another woman at a bar who was really drunk. She told me her friends deserted her, so I said she could hang out with me and my friends as it was my birthday, to keep an eye on her and because she seemed fun. Then she started falling off of chairs and spilling drinks, so I encouraged her to get a cab. She started crying about how everyone hated her as I was helping her outside, but agreed to go home. I got a cab, paid for it because she was a mess, and all of a sudden, she got really violent and ended up kicking me in the face trying to get out of the cab because she wasn't done. She pushed me and told me to F off, but ultimately sat back down in the cab crying. We had already exchanged numbers, so the next day she texted me apologizing profusely and asking if we could stay friends. I told her I appreciated her apology, but no thanks. I will always try to help people where I can, but that turned me off from going above and beyond. Plus, you can rarely rationalize with really drunk and upset people. Experience 8. Most moral panics? Stranger danger. Convincing people in the 1970s to 90s that hundreds of thousands of American children were being yoinked into random cars by evil strangers each year while downplaying and underfunding the resources that could actually help decrease child abduction. Child abductions not only never came anywhere near those huge numbers, but it was and still is nearly always a custodial issue or a very close family member. Teaching people to be wary of kidnapping is great, directing all their fears toward vague spooky strangers and not helping people learn how to actually prevent kidnapping is kinda crap. Experience 9. During one of China's extremely dry seasons, think of their Dust Bowl period, Mao ordered the killing of birds to prevent birds from eating seeds and so increase agricultural productivity. Instead, what happened is that birds that feed on plant pests were killed, making the situation even worse and resulting in the death of millions. A bad dry season, deforestation, misuse of pesticides, and a war against nature under his belief that conquering nature was the way to improve agricultural yield and the well-being of their citizens. Stupid, uninformed decisions, even if seemingly rational to a layman, resulting in one of the biggest human and ecological cost disasters. We still make such decisions from time to time, sometimes for profit on the belief that such will benefit all, and sometimes for genuinely good reasons. Experience 10. Keep on trying to help someone so desperately that you lose sight of your own actions and end up hurting everyone around you by neglecting your own health and becoming overly defensive of that person, even insulting and attacking others for them. This can happen too fast when you fall in love with a bad person. Experience 11. My mom called my Christian university that 17-year-old me attended at my parents' behest to inform the school that I was smoking weed, drinking, and having intercourse. She thought because it was a Christian university, they would put me into a counseling program to get me back on track. The school told me to pack my bags and leave immediately, and they rescinded the 80% scholarship I obtained, causing me to owe the full 100% for that semester, which I'm still paying off a decade later. Edit. This comment is getting a lot of traction, so I figured I'd add another nugget. After getting kicked out of college, my 18th birthday was the next month. My parents somehow, my dad is a tech nerd so he could hack any account I had, found out that I was going to have a party at a friend's house to celebrate. There was alcohol and weed at the party. Lo and behold, my parents called the state police and alerted them of the party. I and 3 other friends got arrested that night. Most charges were dropped or expunged eventually. Edit 2. Thank you to everyone for your responses. There are too many comments and DMs to reply to, so I will answer some here. For those saying I got what I deserved or my mom was justified, it takes 2 to tango. My choices played a role for sure. This story was a response to the prompt about good intentions going sideways. My mom had good intentions when she alerted the school of my activity. She didn't want me to get kicked out and still be paying for it years later, but that's what happened. I don't claim sainthood in this scenario. I broke the rules knowingly. How did my mom know about the partying/intercourse? I visited home for a weekend, and she went through my bags while I was in the shower. She found condoms and a bottle of liquor. She already knew I'd been smoking weed here and there for a couple of years at this point. I said my dad hacked my online accounts to discover I was throwing a party. Excuse my lack of intelligent tech vocabulary there. He had a program or software where he could track keystrokes to then discover passwords to my accounts or something along those lines. Similar to what they used to monitor the computers in my high school. How is my relationship with my parents now? It's great. I have forgiven them completely. That doesn't mean I don't feel some resentment now and again. Their choices, and mine even more so, made my life very difficult. At my lowest point, I made a plan to kill myself. All of my dreams and potential seemed crippled by debt and a lack of gainful employment opportunities. I lived in a town, technically a village, of 300 people in the rural northeast of the USA. Thankfully, before I was able to harm myself too badly or permanently, I had a mystical experience. During that experience, I saw my situation, my parents, myself, and reality from a perspective that was not my own regular waking consciousness. I saw that I could choose to perpetuate pain and suffering by holding on to anger, hate, and resentment for my parents and myself for the choices we made. I saw it was possible to feel joy, to forgive, to repair, to heal. My life didn't instantly become better the next day, but my perspective shifted to where I wanted to repair the damage that was done. Anger is the second wound your enemy inflicts upon you was very applicable in my situation. I could let the anger and hurt dictate what my life would look like, or I could choose to cultivate joy, come what may. Holding on to anger and resentment was another form of allowing my parents to control me. The real power move is to forgive. To release the hold your enemy, for lack of a better term, has over your life through your unhappiness. Behind true forgiveness is where we find freedom. Much love, Reddit. Experience 12. The invention of social media. When Tom was working at Friendster, I genuinely believe he wanted to build something that allowed people to socialize and communicate in a new and modern way. On paper, early MySpace is a brilliant concept that made a lot of people realize the potential of the internet. This concept was then mutilated and turned into what social media is today. Quite possibly the single most socially damaging invention that ever happened. Far away from bringing people closer together, it has turned into a tool that is tearing people further apart, making them feel more disconnected from society than ever, and instead of democratizing discussion, it has put even more power into the hands of the elite. Experience 13. A company in a town I used to live in employed a lot of people from the local disability support center. These people had mental disabilities such as Down syndrome, and this company employed them to come in a few hours a week and work, and by work, I mean little tasks that gave these employees' lives a sense of meaning, purpose, and structure. Things like folding pamphlets and stamping papers, and they would be paid a small amount for their time, not minimum wage, but enough for them to be absolutely thrilled with their pay from working. The government made some changes so that these people had to be paid minimum wage, I assume to avoid people being taken advantage of. I am sure they had the best intentions, but this company and many others could not afford to pay all of these people minimum wage, and so they had to cut back to only letting 1 to 2 people work instead of all of the people who were benefiting from working for them initially. It was really sad, especially because these people did not understand why they were not allowed to work anymore.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's stories. If you want to see more stories, check out these videos or check the links in the description for more videos. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And ring that notification bell.